fundamental rights. So let us first look into the factor that what is the essential difference between a regular right and a fundamental right. What essentially is the meaning of this, right? So before looking into the aspect of how it is being adapted in the Indian constitution, we will be first trying to understand the basic literal meaning of fundamental rights. So these are the basic human rights provided to people by that have been recognized by a high degree of protection from encroachment. Okay, so this is a very vague definition. Let me break it down for you. So these are basic human rights, the rights that are essential for a human being for their survival. Just for their survival, and also essentially in Indian context it is also well-being, but like if you break it down to the bare bones of it, the basic human rights which are essential for their survival provided to the people, these can be the people of the world or the people of the state, by that have been recognized by a high degree of protection from. So high degree of protection, this needs to be recognized, these rights needs to be recognized by someone, right? So while say you are a child, you play in your nearby field, you go to the nearby park and you play there, all right, and you have some said rules that okay, someone will not throw the ball out of the railings or the boundary wall of the park. Now if someone doesn't follow these rules, who is supposed to ensure that, right? So someone, if whenever you're making some rules, we need to make sure that it is being recognized by someone. Everyone who are there, who are going to practice this right, they have this recognized and there is an authority to regulate that. Okay, there is a high degree of protection. Say you have a secretary of that park and he looks into the factor that if the ball is being thrown out by someone, some girl or a boy, then they make sure that they scold that child. That is the provision, all right? So there is a higher degree of protection that needs to be authorized by someone. Now looking into India's context, when we look for fundamental rights in India, so this higher degree of protection is Supreme Court. Sorry, what did I write? Higher degree of protection is by Supreme Court, right? And who is it recognized by? It is recognized by our nation. It is recognized by the virtue of our constitution, right? And this high degree of this high degree of protection from encroachment is looked at by the Supreme Court, all right? Now let us understand it. Human rights, from here the important factor is human rights. So we know that these are the rights essential for our survival and basic existence and also certain well-being. Who are these people in context of India? The people are the people of India, and also some of the rights are available to all human beings. The people who are not the citizens of India, it is also available to those people. And who provides it? It comes to us because of the constitution. And who ensures that it is being followed? By the Supreme Court, right? So these are the bodies that ensure that we have our fundamental rights in India. Now let us look at the constitutional aspect of the fundamental rights. So in India, these rights are enshrined in the part 3 of the constitution, specifically article 12 to 35. These are the articles that are essentially the fundamental rights of Indians, all right? As justiciable means you will be provided justice if these are violated, meaning they are enforceable in courts. If your fundamental rights are violated, you can go to the courts, you can go to the court so that you get justice on basis of your fundamental rights. They are designed to protect individuals from state actions and social injustice. So say government is not providing you equality in an aspect, you are not given equality, you are not given, say, the freedom of speech. We will further get into the details of what are our fundamental rights, but if the states is restricting you from that, or there is an injustice that you need to have had certain opportunity but you are not getting it because of some social injustice, then these fundamental rights ensure that they are being provided to us, promoting equality, freedom, dignity of an individual. So obviously we get equality because we follow the law of equality in our land. There is freedom, there is some restrictions in it, but we have a high level of freedom in our country. And what else is essential? The dignity, right? So you can be equal, you can be free, but what is also essential for your well-being is that your dignity as a human being, as an individual, is being protected. So what are the key aspects of fundamental rights in India? The biggest aspect is that it is justiciable. The courts in India ensure that your fundamental rights are not violated. It is not absolute. We also need to remember that in case of certain situation, all right, these fundamental rights can be restricted. These are not absolute. So if, say, there is there was this huge wave of coronavirus in not just our country but all over the world, so the public safety was at risk, the public safety had to be ensured. So the fundamental rights of moving around freely, the freedom of traveling around India freely, that was being restricted by it because of the public safety. So what does it mean? That when certain situation comes up, these fundamental rights, some fundamental rights, can be taken away to ensure public safety, and they are amendable. If you have a certain idea, if you have gone through the NCERTs of class 11 and 12, then you would know that our fundamental rights, they had been through an amendment. What is being amendment? Right to property was a fundamental right, but later it was removed. We still have the right to property, but it is no more a fundamental right, all right? So it can be amended if in future we face certain situation or certain upgrade in our society, certain new conventions or new ways of living comes up. To adjust with that, we have the power to amend the fundamental rights that we have. We have learned in the previous chapter or previous lecture that our constitution is a blend of flexible and rigidity. Right, rigid. It is a blend of both flexible and rigid. What does it mean? That the it is not so easy that any fine day anyone in power can come and change the whole constitution. But if there is a requirement, we have a very elaborate and very effective process of making the changes and bringing an amendment. So this is a beautiful blend of flexibility and rigidity of Indian constitution. Now let's look into the details of the fundamental rights, all right? So it is enshrined in the part 3 of the constitution. So can you tell me how many parts are there in our Indian constitution? So we have 25 parts, 448 articles, and we have, sorry, I should write it like the permanent view parts, right? So we have total 25 parts. Let me adjust it a bit here. We have 25 parts. We have 448 articles. We also have 12 schedules, all right? And what else we can remember we have amended the constitution. We have had 106 sorry, I wrote the spelling incorrect, amendments in our constitution. So 25 parts, 448 articles, 12 schedules and 106 amendments. All right, I hope you have written it down if you want to. Let's just look further into this document. All right, so it is in the part 3, and the number and the articles that fall under it is from 12 to 35. All right, so now let's look at the 6 categories that the fundamental rights are being divided in. The first one is right to equality. The starting of the fundamental right starts with equality, because our constitution ensures that everyone in this country is being treated equally. So from article 14 to 18 comes under the right to equality. Now you can wonder that why it starts from 12 but the right to equality starts from 14 to 18. In article 12 and 13 there are a lot of definitions that what are fundamental rights, so the definition of state, that how the state, what is the state, that is what comes under the state that is going to protect the fundamental rights. So those are the definitions and details given in article 12 and 13. The right to equality starts from article 14 and goes up to article 18. The guarantees right to equality guarantees equality before the law, prohibits discrimination, ensures equal opportunities in employment. All right, let's break down each and every word of it. It guarantees, remember that. Who guarantees this? The courts of India, right? It guarantees equality before the law. Everyone before the law would be equal. Prohibits discrimination. You shall not be discriminated on basis of race, sex, caste, economic class or any other thing whatsoever. You should not be subjected to discrimination. And ensures equal opportunity in employment. So if there is a certain vacancy for some job, it needs to be ensured that everyone there gets equal opportunity to get that job. All right, this is why we also have reservation, so that the people from the scheduled caste, scheduled type, other backward classes, the EWS class, they also get an equal opportunity to get the job, to get the employment. Then there is right to freedom, starting from article 19 going up to article 22. Includes freedom of speech, assembly, association, movement, residence and occupation. Alright, so you have the freedom to speech. You are free to speak your mind even in public. Freedom to assembly. You can assemble together and discuss and talk and have conversations and perform certain activities. So you have the right to assemble. Associations, you can form association, you can form book clubs, you can form some social event based association, you can form an association that looks into environmental protection. So you have the right of association. You can also come together, say all the students of a certain college can form an association. All right, all the people living in a certain colony can form an association. Then there is movement. You are allowed to move across India and you shall not face any difficulty regarding the same. So you can go, say, to Meghalaya, and you should also be able to travel to Rajasthan or Goa, and you should not face any restriction whatsoever in your movement. You also have the right to reside in any part of the country until and unless it is a scheduled area for the tribes. You also have the right to reside. Say if you want to reside in Mumbai, you can reside there. If you want to reside in Kolkata or Chennai or Bangalore or Hyderabad, you are allowed to do that. Also, occupation. You are free to become, say, a content creator or an IAS or a small business owner. You can become an entrepreneur. Whatever you aspire to be, you should have the opportunity to perform that occupation in India. But this is also subjected to reasonable restriction. You remember I told you how our right to movement was restricted during the time of COVID-19, right? And that was because of public safety. So there needs to be a reasonable restriction. It should not be because, say, the government of a certain state don't want you to come into their state. So they cannot just go on and restrict your movement of coming to that state just because they want it like that. There needs to be a certain reasonable restriction. The next category is right against exploitation. No person shall be exploited in this country. All right. So this is under Article 23 and 24. Prohibits forced labor, child labor, and human trafficking. You should not be forced into doing a work that will not pay you, where you will not be paid, but your physical or mental efforts are going into it and you are not paid for that. You should not be forced into such labor. Child labor is restricted in our country. The exploitation of child in a laborious work is restricted. There are a certain artistic professions that a child is allowed to perform, but the laborious task in hazardous industries, like we know that in the firecracker industries there used to be a lot of child labor. That is very illegal and that is against the fundamental rights of that child. Also against human trafficking. We know that even though it is so much illegal, it happens in not just our country but all around the world. So human trafficking is essentially a crime that is, even though it's very brutal, very gruesome, and breaks down a human's dignity to the minuscule level. It shatters that, but it still prevails all over the world. But what essentially human trafficking means? Human trafficking means when a human being is being captured and sent from one place to another, they are treated as commodities and sold off. Alright, so human trafficking is often done of children. Human trafficking is often done of women who are sold into the rackets of prostitution and other such things. So this article 22, 23 and 24, they gives you the right against such heinous exploitation. All right. Then there is right to freedom of religion. This is provided from Article 25 to 28. All right. Guarantees freedom of conscience, the right to profess, practice any religion, and prohibits religious discrimination. So let's break it down one by one. The freedom of conscience. You are allowed to believe in any faith, any religion that you feel a calling for. All right. You can also be an atheist. That is also allowed in our country. You can follow certain faith, and if you want to, you can also not follow any faith at all. You have the conscience. You decide that your faith is a decision of your own. The right to profess and practice any religion. So if you are professing any religion and there is a certain thing that there are certain things that one needs to follow while practicing certain religions. Say you want to become a Buddhist monk and they essentially require to shave their heads and wear the orange or maroon cloth around their body. So you are allowed to do that. You can be a Muslim, and if you want to, you can decide to wear a hijab. If you are a Sikh, you are allowed to wear a pagdi, right? If you are a Christian, you are allowed to wear a cross around your neck. So if your religion, if your religious practice needs something from you, you are allowed to do that. There might be certain restrictions in professing certain elements of your religion in government school or government university or a government organization, but personally in your personal life you are allowed to profess and practice any religion. If you have to do certain say yajna, if you are allowed to do that. If the celebration of Holi is a part of your religion, the celebration of Eid is a part of your religion, so you are allowed to practice such things. And prohibits religious discrimination. You shall not be discriminated on basis of your religion. All right. So if in a government school you are not allowed to celebrate Holi. All right. So it should not be that only Holi is being not allowed to be celebrated in your school. It should be that any other religious practice, any other religious festival is not being celebrated in the school. It essentially need not to be any discrimination on basis of religion. All right. If certain in a certain place, if you're not allowed to profess or practice any form of your religion, then it should not be for your specific religion. It should be for everyone, right? So that ensures the freedom of religion. Then there is cultural and educational rights. All right. So the educational right, can you tell me that we have the right to education till a point of time, and it was later added via an amendment. What was the amendment that ensured education as a fundamental right? So right to education doesn't essentially come under cultural and educational right, but in 2002 by the 86th constitutional amendment, all right, the education of children from the age from 6 to 14 years became a constitutional right, and it was amended and added to the constitution under article 21A. So when there is a capital A beside an article, that means that article is being added to the constitution via an amendment. So we are going to remember this. This is a very essential information, and one needs to remember this from the perspective of UPSC exam. That is, in 2002 via the 86th constitution amendment, the children from 6 to 14 years were given the fundamental right to get education, and it was added in our constitution via article 21A. all right. Okay. Now just look into the cultural and educational rights. It is given in Article 29 and 30. So it protects the rights of minority to conserve their culture, language, script, to establish and administer educational institutes. So you must have seen madrasas, right? Because they are a minority community. They are given the right to have an educational institute, so that they can preserve their culture, their language, their script. So if say there is a certain tribal community that needs their culture to be preserved, their language to their script to be conserved and protected and propagated, so they have the right to establish an educational institute where their culture, their language, their script would be taught to the next generation. All right. Then comes the right to constitutional remedies. This comes under Article 32. Guarantees access to the Supreme Court to enforce fundamental rights through various writs. All right. I hope you remember. So what are writs? We have a certain few writs. Under Article 32, we have the opportunity, we are allowed to go to the Supreme Court to enforce our fundamental rights in case of a violation, and we also have writs for to ensure such. So again, let's just roughly go through the writs once. So we have 5 writs. All right. What are these 5 writs? The first one is habeas corpus. Right. What is habeas corpus? Habeas corpus essentially means that A person, an individual who is being detained, who is being taken into custody, is facing detention, that person needs to be presented before courts. So habeas corpus, if you go to the literal meaning of it, so it means where is the body, where is the individual. You cannot just detain a person and that person could vanish in thin air, right? You are not allowed to do that. So by the writ of habeas corpus, one have the right to be presented in front of their court if they are detained, if they are arrested, if they are retained in jail. They have the right to be presented before court so that the decision could be made that is their detention just or unjust, and what is the further proceeding going to be like. So that is habeas corpus. Then there is mandamus. What does mandamus mean? It essentially is a command. It is a command given by a court. Ordering a body or an organization, a government body or organization, to do its job. Say you filed an RTI and that body is not getting your job done. You have the right to approach the court, and the court can order the authorities to make sure that whatever is required of them, that is being practiced. All right. Then there is, on number 3, we have certiorari. Right. What does this mean? This essentially ensures the hierarchy of the courts, right? So suppose there is a district court and it gave an order which was not under its jurisdiction. All right. So the higher court of a district court can be high court. The higher court of from the high court is the Supreme Court. So a order given by a lower court can be squashed, right? Can be wiped off by an order of the higher court. All right. Then there is prohibition. So if a lower court, say, is taking up a case that is not under its jurisdiction, all right, it is not under its jurisdiction, then the higher court can prohibit the lower court from taking up the case. All right. So here, what is the difference between certiorari and prohibition? Certiorari is already when there is a decision given. Certiorari is already when the decision is made. And in case of prohibition, what it is the court was taking the case. The court was working on the case. Even during that process, a higher court can tell the lower court to not take it up. All right. Okay. So last but not the least, we have 5th. We have quo warranto. What is this? It is asking about the authority of a person to hold a certain office. Say I become an IAS officer someday, or you become an IAS officer someday. So one has the right to know that by what authority, how this person is holding this position. All right. If you find someone getting a position in, say someone is the head of some cooperative body, co-op body. All right. And you know that they don't have the qualification to be there. There are certain provisions, there are certain eligibility criteria for every government office, right? So they don't have that, but they are sitting in position of that seat, of that position. So we have the right to challenge that. We can challenge the authority, we can challenge the position of that certain individual under quo warranto. So let's quickly look through the writs My handwriting looks horrible, but let's just go through it. So there is habeas corpus, which means that one has the right to be presented before a court. They cannot be banished from detention. All right. There is mandamus. Mandamus is a command by a court to any government institution to do their job. All right. There is certiorari. Certiorari can squash any order given by a lower court if there is some illegality or if it is out of their jurisdiction. Prohibition. Prohibition is the higher court can prohibit a lower court from taking up a certain case that is not under the jurisdiction. Even when they have started working on it, or even if they are working on it, the higher court can prohibit them from taking up that course. And then there is quo warranto. Quo warranto is we have the right to ask the authority of a certain office, of a certain individual who is holding the office, right? We can ask, we are allowed to question their eligibility. All right. So with this, we will be ending this lecture of fundamental rights. I hope that you were able to get a hold of all the fundamental rights that is there in our constitution. This was a very basic, giving you the very basic idea of it. For UPSC, we also have to get into the details of it, right? So we have to get into the details of each and every article right here. So because it's a very, very essential topic for UPSC. So this was a very basic initial lecture for, so that this whole topic of fundamental right is no more complicated, is no more looks very tough to you. It is something that we already know of. We just needed to know the nitty-gritties of it. All right. So this was the first initial lecture. I will be making further lectures on this topic because it needs elaborate discussion. I hope that you gained some knowledge from this. You will be able to retain it. The printable copy of this lecture will be available in our Telegram channel. I have summed this up in only one page so that you can get it printed and it is easier for you to revise. So do check the link in the description, and if you are liking these videos, the discussion that we are doing on this channel, please consider subscribing. With that, I will be taking off for the day. Good night.